Thank you so much for staying tuned to this channel. Welcome to yet another edition of Africa Discourse. I am Wilson Omasho. Today, it is all about Chad's presidential election and the rulership of Idriss Deby for 30 years. And now he's contesting against 7 persons. Some call them unknown. Why contending candidates, according to report, they've been intimidated, they've been molested, they've been shaken to their foundation, and there's report that one of them even lost their mom because of the crackdown of the presidential task force, so to speak. Allegations. Anyway, my analyst will be the one to throw more light on this. With me here in the studio, I have 2 wonderful gentlemen, and one is a clergyman, a political analyst, a human rights activist. Join me to welcome, he's also a lecturer, College of Medicine. I almost said faculty again, College of Medical Sciences. Join me to welcome Honorable Frank Amigo. Honorable, welcome to Africa Discourse.
Thank you.
I appreciate your coming. Yeah. All right. Now, this other person is a reverend gentleman, gentle to the core when you talk about political analysis, talking about social analysis, both local and international. He is well grounded. He is a clergyman also. Join me to welcome Reverend Humphrey Arega. Reverend, welcome to Africa Discourse.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. And thank you, viewers.
Okay, our neighbor Chad, they're about conducting the election, and many persons have been talking about this, saying what is happening up there in Chad is not really democracy. Others are saying, yes, that is democracy in action. This man, Idriss Deby, the president of Chad, tinkered with the constitution to give him the right to rule till 2033 or thereabout. Yes, 2033. And people have been talking about this for 30 years plus now. He's been there, and he is still contesting. There have been reports, allegations of crackdown on opposition, but the election, according to report, has been peaceful. I don't know. Let me start off with Reverend Humphrey Arega. You heard the term peaceful and you are laughing. Yeah. Yes, it is peaceful. Over to you, Reverend.
Yes, peaceful in the African context is when you have harassed an opposition to submission. And he has, in fact, they even called for a boycott. The opposition called for a boycott because they didn't see how election can hold in that kind of situation. So I've also told myself recently that I do not even get angry with African politics, because American politics has always shown us that human beings are human beings anywhere when you give them access to power. The unfortunate thing, which is like a little bit different from America, is that in America you have institutions to check to some extent. In Africa, there are no institutions. You have strong men. And the strong man uses every available resources of government to harass the people they were supposed to govern. So I don't want to believe, and I keep saying to myself, we should just begin to forget about the word democracy when it comes to Africa. We should stick to the despotic monarchical system of Africa. This is where the so-called elected governors, their rulership is even more autocratic than the traditional rulership that they ought to have borrowed from. We talk about reformation, but there is no reformation. One has ruled for 30 years. Again, he has also said he sought the place for over time until he dies, to 2033. Yeah. You don't know how many days he has. I didn't even know how old he is. But you have been there for 30 years. And you ask yourself a question. What value does he have to add to the nation that he still seeks a position to say, but where are the assembly? The assembly gave him that coverage. He changed the constitution with the help of the assemblymen. Unfortunately, we have yes men in assemblies in an African context. Again, like I also said, I'm not even quarreling with Africa again, because even in America, the politics is not different. You have yes men in politics in America dying for their party, whether good or bad. But I believe that we mustn't look at the bad to conquer the bad. We should be able to ask ourselves these basic questions. The problem with Africa in particular is that when an African leader leaves the office, he is no longer relevant in anything in life. So he stays in the office to remain relevant for his life until he dies, because there's no other thing for him to do. Academically, he cannot be called. If you talk of peace, you cannot call a man who has never known peace to come and help mediate in peace conflict. So he is really, the African leader does not have any other thing to hold on to. And so he hold on to the power that he has. I say power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. This is where we are.
All right, I will come back to you, Reverend. And Reverend Amego, because I'm with two reverends here, just people wondering, maybe somewhere along the line, pastor. Okay, not yet. All right, you heard him. Yes. He said humans must be humans, and what African leaders just, have to cling onto is the power, and nothing else. 2033 in view, according to Idriss Deby, and right now he's vying to continue to extend his tenure. I don't know, what do you feel about the presidential election right now going on in Chad?
Yeah, before the election now, what Idriss Deby is doing is not far from what his predecessor did. They also stayed for too long a time. And recall that the independence was sometime in 1959 or thereabout. And from that time till now, they have only had 6 leaders or presidents or rulers. So now begin to wonder that previously people have been living there endlessly. So what Idriss Deby is doing differently is to come in a coup d'etat in 1990, and since then he has been in power. He gained power since he was 38 years old. And along the line, in 2003, they discovered crude oil in Chad. So how can a man leading the country majorly on cotton, that's the only thing they were exporting majorly, now suddenly discovered that there was crude oil, and there's no sane African leader that want to let go power at that point. So in 2018, he masterminded the review of the Constitution. And as Reverend said, they are yes men, they accepted that this crude oil we have gotten now, we need to open a new chapter to our rulership of this Chad. And incidentally, the thing paved way for them. Even the West, they are in support of what he's doing because of their kind of selfish gains. The West is not to be exonerated from the long-lasting stay in office of this president. If the West had not gone closer to him because of the gain they want to have from the crude, I don't think this Idriss Deby would have been there up to now. And the various intimidations, frustrations, incarcerations of his opponents. Initially, they were about 16, and finally 6. So that will tell us that those persons that still had the guts to contest against him were ready to die for the process. And as you mentioned in the opening remarks, one of the contestants lost the mother and the son. Of course, as is done in Nigeria also, is to deny that they were not party to the death of the mother and the son. But that question has to be probably answered. It's only time that will help us unravel that. So the election we are faced with now is this is 6th term. Because the term there is 5 years. This is 6th term. And the constitutional amendment, as we also agreed here now, and that's the situation, that it will be there for up to 2033. That's the next 12 years from now. And the fears are palpable that once he leaves office, will he still be very relevant? So he will do anything possible. And what he has been doing that appears endearing to the west, apart from the crude oil, is the apparent fight against insurgency, banditry and all that. The man is, as it were, showing as if he's showing the right approach to fighting crime and criminality in that sub-region. I'm sure by the time he wins now, he's of course going to win. The provisional results will be out on the 25th of April.
All right.
That's about 14 days from now.
Yeah, that is 2 weeks from now. That's
2 weeks
will come out.
yes, from now. Then by May 15, the full results will be out. I won't be surprised that he becomes president. I won't be surprised.
Okay, now you get to see this term being, like an inscription on the faces, heart and lips of opposition, saying that, look, we are not part of this election, we're going to boycott this election. And some of them did. Boycotting an election, is it detrimental or helpful to the citizens of Chad?
Well, I have come to the conclusion that when you stay away from election, you have handed over power and all to the person you are angry with. You see, what people do not understand is that you must keep fighting if you have a cause you think is genuine. Because nobody gives up power easily. And once, you see, most of the time, these tyrannical leaders are very much afraid of opposition. That's why they do everything to silence them. If you just give up, then you have given up for life, which is not good for them. Because there are citizens who are looking up to you. You say boycott election, but you can't stay at home. Somebody must win the election. But if you vote, if people voted in an election, and then you are looking at you are able to take a graphic understanding of what the stand of the people are, whether he wins or he doesn't win. But you see how many persons voted against his rule. That also will also let other people who are outside begin to see this person may have some very much flaws for us to deal with. See, my brother said, unfortunately for Africa, the West are part of our big problems because of what they stand to gain. Somebody said some years ago, when an American comes to help you, he's help for every dollar he spends, he's ready to gain $100. If he doesn't, he's not coming. If Britain helps you, he's going to gain his pound. Nobody helps you as Father Christmas. Because the raw material they need to survive is in Africa. Everything that the West and America and China needs to survive as nations are embedded in the African soil. So they look for individuals who can serve their purpose. And unfortunately, like I also said somewhere ago, we don't also look at history, how the slave trade come about. The Western nations saw gold mines in Africa, copper, oil, and they tried as much as possible to endow themselves to the native authority by giving them packets of cigarettes, by giving them some few things that they have never seen before, and they gave their human resources, youthful, exuberant men and women, as slaves. They depopulated the progress of Africa. That mentality has not changed. Most of our leaders today have their wealth stored in these own countries. So if you make any noise, your resources is lost. So you are trying to protect the resources you have stolen. And then you allow others to come and exploit us. That's why we don't have industries to make a probable end user friendly things for us. You dig cocoa, you dig iron ore in Africa, you take it as raw material to the US. They process it and bring it back for you. You dig your oil from the soil. You export it as raw materials. And at a cheaper rate. They are coming and they are bringing to you finished product expensive. So whatever money they must have given to you as bribe, they take it back as part of the price you pay for those products. So on both ends, the African people are losing. That's why we can't have intelligent men and women who can rally around Africa like the Nkrumah and co did. Yeah. I think a man from Kigali is maybe doing some things and talking. And Europeans are not, they're not liking him at all. See, because he has seen that there is nothing too special when Africans and Europeans and Americans are in the table of knowledge. Africans have outshined them most of the time. All right. And that's why they also give you scholarship, other incentive to remove the intelligent Africans from here to build their country. Okay. And we have so we have not had leaders again like Nelson Mandela who will be thinking of how we can develop Africa. But they are thinking of how they can have power to oppress, and everybody is shouting.
Okay. All right. Now he hinted on 2 points. He talked about when you boycott an election, you've like surrendered, giving power to the person you ought to be competing with, and both of you agree to the fact that the West has so much to do with this. What has this got to do with the West? Was it the West that told Idriss to tinker with the Constitution, to give them power to vie to 2033? Was it the West that gave Africa that mentality to sit tight in power? And don't forget that this is also like a trend in Francophone region. After all, Chad also is a Francophone nation. It happened in Ivory Coast. They tinker with the Constitution to give them more time. Is it the fault of the West or just that African thing? And of course, the issue of boycotting election. Take it up from there.
Okay, for the boycotting, I want to see it differently. Those that have agitated for the boycotting of the elections, they just want to make a statement to express their displeasure over what the city president has done and is still doing. So they just wanted to make a statement that this you have asked us to come and do, we are not part and parcel of the process. And we commonly say, he who fights and runs away lives to fight another day. So they would have assessed the situation if we had gone casting our votes. Because they have the population of Chad is approximately 60 million, 15.9 something. Yeah. And those to vote 7.3 million. Yeah. So now the call was for the 7.3 to boycott, which practically is not possible. So even your own party, everybody will not be faithful to the point of not voting. So that call was necessary, but to keep to the boycotting will become practically impossible. But all the same, they have made their points. They have expressed their displeasure about the various inhuman treatment meted on them by the president and the various armed forces of that country, and lives are being lost. Even the election started yesterday. That was the 11th of April. It started yesterday, and the results, to me, they're already known.
Are you the electoral umpire of Chad?
That's the basis.
How would you know the results?
That's the basis for the boycotting of the election. So they marched en masse to the electoral office or commission to protest against the conduct of the election. And of course, as the president will commonly do it, will dispatch police and army to frustrate them. And I will call out that they are planning to create chaos in the country, and they'll be arrested at the same time. So that's as much about boycotting. That's the best they could do. And the other question you asked was
the West. Was it the West that told him to go take out the Constitution? And don't forget that this is like a Francophone thing. Yeah. It's like a wildfire in the Francophone region, in the West African sub-Sahara. You get to see them taking the Constitution to give them more time to stay in power.
Chad is peculiar. There are several countries surrounding Chad, including Nigeria. Nigeria has a border with Chad. Yeah. So it will shock you to know that as the time France colonized Chad and they gave them independence in 1959, because Chad is also having a border with what's this country now? The northern part of Africa, the Arabians. Yeah. So right now they speak both French and Arabic language. They speak French language, Arabic language. So the influence of the northern part of Africa now shows so much on them. And it's also interesting to know that the capital of Chad, that name was gotten from an Arabic village, and they now used it to show that it's an African language. Let's use it as a capital of the country. So going back specifically to Western influence, Chad being one of the poorest in the world, the president will have some bits of inferiority complex. No apology, because that inferiority complex shows up immediately that they discovered oil in 2003.
Yeah.
This President Idriss Deby would have left there. But because the West shows some interest that when you give us some barrels of crude oil, this is what you're going to get back.
But the West is not coming up to say when you give us this. They're not coming to say that in support of what he did.
They will tell you. Just as Reverend earlier mentioned about the slave trade, how it started.
Yeah.
They'll just assess your environment, that which you are lacking. They could even give you a bag of salt. You don't have it. A piece of mirror. You have not seen yourself ever before. And so clearly. They'll give you a piece of mirror. So what the West did was to look at what they would really need, and they offered them. And they have been praising him. Praising to the point that when he is able to fight insurgency, they will further assist him to ensure that he's able to win the war against insurgency and all that. So the president of Chad is seeing himself as a good man before the people, not knowing he's doing more harm than good. So the influence of the West over Chad is because of the poverty they are faced with. You know, when the rich will meet the poor, he can easily intimidate you by what he has. And once he dangles that before you, you don't know when you're going to submit all the secrets that you've ever had. So with the war situation in Chad now, America and some other Western countries, they are happy because they are still able to remove the crude oil they earlier wanted to have. So they are no way bothered. Let the president continue. UN has not made a major statement so far. Why? Some days before this election, the UN Secretary General said that they should ensure that it is peaceful, is transparent, is credible. They should ensure. But all it will take to make them have those qualities of election we're not provided.
All right. You just hold on. I will come back to you. UN came out to make a statement. It should be peaceful, transparent, free, and of course fair. From what we've seen so far, I think these qualities are there in the election, because talking about yesterday, today it was peaceful, it was transparent, and of course, Reverend, what do you feel about that? Is Idriss breaking any of these conditions put on the ground by the UN?
First of all, let me say he who pays the piper, he takes the tune. Election is not won on election day, especially in Africa. It's won way before that. It starts with the election commission. When you do not have a level playing field for all the contestants, then there's no free election. When people have come to a point where they say, look, voting does not guarantee me peace. I may go out to vote, I may not come back. So let me stay in my house. You're talking of an induced peace. It's not peace that people have really said, yes, we are. If you look at the line, what is the figure those lines are giving you? But tomorrow you are going to hear 90%, 98%. One is people who voted. They're not telling you how many figures or number of people that voted. So let us not, when the United, I didn't expect United Nations to say any other thing. But how much of power does United Nations have over nations in conducting elections? It's just an expression of wish or thoughts. They have no enforcing power, no matter how big you say the United Nations is. Nations are independent. So when they do not ensure that the beginning of the process of election is okay, they cannot be talking of free, fair election you're conducting. But having said that, let us also, I just want to chip in this issue of Western. The French has a more worse situation than the European, the British people when it comes to relationship with Africa. French colonies were colonized and made French citizens. They were not, second-rate second citizens. But that's also not that. The economy of every francophone is tied to the French CFA. The Central Bank of France controls the banking situation of every francophone country. So when you have that, what are you going to talk about? So they're just doing on behalf of, because for every money you send to Central Bank of France, there is a percentage that they take from your money. You pay money for your own money.
You just hold on. You continue with our train of thought after this break. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Thank you so much for staying tuned to this channel. If you just joined us, this is Africa Discourse. We're taking a look at Chad's presidential election and Idriss Deby's 30 years rule. Wow, 3 decades, and he has taken over the constitution to give him the power to vie for elective position, of course, as a president, up until 2033. You do the maths. Now, you're giving a point about the Francophone country, how they link the banking sector into formerly colonized region in Africa. Take it up from there.
So I'm saying that they are tied. And any person who will not dance to the tune of France in the Francophone will not rule the country. So they have to do that. But let's see what France, and this is the problem I tell you with the West and us. When there was a problem in the political system, Macron, who was just one of these junior officers, galvanized the youths, and he upstaged the political system. Today he's prime minister. But they will not allow Africans to do such things because it doesn't dance to their interests. And these are things that African young persons who are intelligent enough should begin to reason. How and why? How many African youths even understand the constitution of their country? How many of them? They don't. So if you want to win an election, you want to be a leader, you must know the intrigues and the issues around your country and look at how you can look at it. Because without that, you're supposed to be governed by rules. A man was able to change the constitution to give him life presidency. What else can he not change? Why will people, and I keep telling to the young people, it is not to vie for presidency. Go and start from the bottom. Because that way, they say elections are local. Once you cannot have a local mandate, you can't win a national mandate. And so this person like Idriss and Co, they have their local environments. They have, over the years, because of the resources they have acquired, they are able to induce. And unfortunately, the young ones are the ones that are used as scavengers of war. Yet is their future that ought to be paramount. And you don't understand it. So it is something that needs to be thought about. Again, let me use the American example. It is the younger generation that voted against Trump because they felt that their interests were not taken care of. And they came out en masse. And they went en masse without campaigning. African leaders, it is when it is 1 year to election, you are coming up to be talking. When over the years, you have not gone around the environment preaching and making them understand what they stand to gain in some things that they ought to articulate your programs well ahead of time and educate, let the people know. It's not when you come for 1 year, 6 months to election, you are saying, let's go for camp. Always listening to. After people, when you see crowd, they don't listen to you. Go to the crowd of politicians. Some of them are drumming, some are selling, they just came to collect money.
All right.
And they go. So if you are going, it is town halls, little town halls that gives reason to understand for people to make change, to make their mind up. Right. Okay. And Africans don't do that.
All right. Now let's take a look at Deby, because from what both of you agree to, it's like he's having this serious backing from the West. Does it mean that Deby is a stabilizing factor in that region? When you talk about the fight against insurgents, the fight against extremism, we talk about jihadist war and the rest of them is fighting them, the jihadist group, insurgents, Boko Haram. Is he a stabilizing factor?
Yeah, I will totally agree. He is, because he has tried so much to ensure peace in that region. And the challenge is having about the way he wants to remain or in power forever. So for the various crises taking place there, even up to Boko Haram, they're also there too. So the man has helped to ensure that there is stability in that region. We have to give it to him. He has done well along that line. But that's not to say that he has the best reasons, the best ideas to curb any insurgency. There are people around him. It's just possible that one or two advisors gave him those information on what to do, not necessarily from his own brain. So, but all the same, we'll give kudos to him. He has tried. And if in Nigeria we did something similar, would have been having some bits of peace in Nigeria at this moment. So the Chadians are having relative peace as far as insurgency or insecurity is concerned. They have done so well as a nation, and that's why one of the reasons why the West, but majorly why the West is attracted to Chad, is the newly found oil wells they have had there. So Idriss Deby is helping because he was a former military officer, so he understands those tactics. So it's not just a civilian. I know he moved from military after he overthrew the former president, and later on the elections were conducted.
Now from Kaki to Agbada,
yes.
stuff.
So but what he does, the military aspect, the blood is still in him. He is too authoritarian. Do you know the last election in 2016? He restricted the use of internet in that country. It was just 2 years ago, 2019, that he lifted the ban fully, that people could have access to internet. That's how to govern a nation. Because he felt they were not passing the right set of information. If you're doing well as a president, it doesn't matter what information they send across. It's almost similar to what we have in Nigeria. At the time, they say, if you see anything, if you see something, you say something. But later on, it became hate speech. People started speaking what they were seeing. But in Chad, the man didn't allow that breathing space. They just clamped down on the internet that it will be highly restricted for only government officials. But just 2 years ago, he lifted the ban fully. But for trying to curb insurgency, I think the man has done well in that direction.
All right. Now, over to you. You said the man has done well in the direction of fighting insurgency. And maybe, just maybe, this is one of the reasons why the West is backing him up. Is that enough to give him a pass mark in this election?
Well, I think the problem is that we do not know all the indices and the issues that affect Chad as a nation. Insurgency is one of them. But look at the level of poverty. You have to ask yourself, what is the level of employment in Chad? What is the level of economic survival? You see, insurgency didn't just start from the beginning. It came up about 2 years or 4 years, 3 years ago. We're looking at that. How much has it developed the industry? Is it, most of these after effect of war and all, as a result of misrule, you know, because when you govern the nation well, you enable and deploy your citizens in a manner that they will be part and parcel of the country, of the nation, then you won't have such environment, you won't have such persons. It's because of the lack of opportunities that people are giving to banditry, people are giving to insurgencies and all. Yes, it may have started, at least they have done better than some of the other countries. Again, you have to ask yourself, how did it? Because Chad is a very poor country. How is he able to acquire the arms and ammunition that he's using to fight the insurgents? It came from the West because of an interest. See, when there is banditry and all, the oil will not flow. That's some of the issues. So,
oil flowing to who?
Because oil has been a major problem for West versus Africans. In Libya, in all of them, is oil. We are talking about that. So he's also saying that, like, he's a military man. He's a youthful man. He was a youthful man. 68 is still a little bit youthful. So he has the energy to do that. But how has that benefited his own people? That's my very basic concern. He has not used the little resources that was even having to let the country be a little bit better economically, to be stable. So again, African leaders have seen that problems create opportunities for them, not for the people they're supposed to be governed. You have to ask yourself the question I keep asking. Why will a man believe that he's the only person who can rule a nation? Why? When there are many Chadians, many African young men and women who are intelligent enough to deploy resources and material and human for the development of a nation. Why? Because they are not allowed, they know that they are short in their own intelligentsia departments or things. They don't, no one man has all the things. But when they're even appointing persons to help govern, they don't give room to those who can challenge their thoughts. They bring in yes people, and that's why we can't find any development, meaningful development in Africa. We have all the resources, we have all the human and material resources to develop our nation, but because we are not. Look, if you go and look at Chad, you find that the military and the investment around the exploration of oil, the budget is more than whatever you talk about the people, because that's where people are. And where does the oil go to? How much is gas? How much is oil material, the oil things that come from the oil, other things in charge? Are people able to afford it? See, some of the things, it's supposed to be a blessing. Like Nigeria, we are now saying it's a cost because of mismanagement. So there is that mismanagement. And when you don't have a check and balance of powers, then that's what happens. Otherwise, the National Assembly in Africa are no more than just yes men. And once you have yes men as people who are supposed to be reasoning, representing people, then where are you going?
All right. Now, if you take a look at the Chadian election, you get to realize that there is a woman, yes, vying for the presidential election, vying for that post. But I mean, one can count that as a plus in the election. What have they say about that, Honorable Frank?
Rather unfortunate. She made an attempt. She was a former Minister of Agriculture.
Yeah.
And just that, what a man can do, let's see if a woman can also do it. But she was rubbished. It would have been better she didn't go. I'm not saying women shouldn't, but considering the situation on ground, they would have no need to start fighting. No matter how sharp a knife is, it does not create a handle for itself. So no matter how good you are, you have to wait for your time. There are people that will take you up. If a king is coming to an environment, there are people that will announce the arrival of a king. So that woman, the timing was not proper. So what she has experienced now, just like a man will experience, she's feeling so bad. She was one of those that led the people to the commissioner's office, electoral commissioner's office, and she was really bittered. But she has tried. Now she has tasted the venom of Idriss Deby. Yeah, she has tasted and she has discovered that she ought not to have been there. Because Idriss is not someone you want to do anything with. Because he wants to stay there as long as he will want to stay. And I foresee a situation whereby that constitution that will allow him to stay till 2033 will be tinkered with over time. Once it is 2033 and it's still strong, they may adjust it further. The yes men at the parliament, their parliamentary election is October this year. For the presidential, October this year. So he will have the right people that will dance to his tune. So if he discovers that those that are there now have lived their time or their relevance, by October later in the year, they might change them. So the president has that power. So for the woman to have shown interest, okay, for the first time in the history of Chad, a woman to go down memory lane that she did try, but was that the expectation she was having in mind in the first instance to have? We'll leave that question for posterity to answer. So what I see there, they should just let this man go ahead with the election, let him also win. Don't boycott, but your not coming out to vote shows your displeasure over what is happening. But now you have shown interest to contest, and the game has been set open. You are not saying, I want to boycott it. That's an afterthought. So in the first instance, they should just let the man be like that. Those that have died, those that have been incarcerated, out of the 16, only 6 ended up contesting.
Contesting, yeah.
So the other 10 should have just waited for one particular time to ensure that when their time comes up, they will show forth whatever talents or life they have to live to make sure that Chad becomes a better country. But the way things have appeared now, it would have been better they didn't contest at all. That would have been the best bet for their lives and for the lives of their family members. So I see Chad over time coming up with better leadership.
Over time?
Yes, with time, yes. Because,
but not this time?
Yes, because if you look at Chad from the map, it's a landlocked country. One of those countries, Libya is one of the countries that bordered Chad. So it's a landlocked country. They have water problem. They have so many challenges.
All right.
So what would have expected with the discovery of the crude oil, that would have been their first challenge to ensure that they have potable water.
Okay.
But all those ones are not being addressed up to now.
Okay.
And they're one of the poorest in the world.
All right. Now, Reverend, you take a look at it from a woman contesting, and of course, some of the candidates running for their lives, because it's there that some of them choose to flee. Some just went on exile because of the harsh treatment of Idriss.
You see, the point is, at the point where there was screening, the first thing the Electoral Commission did was to screen out those who were supposed to be formidable opponents. And they allowed those who do not have anything to do with it. You see, these are some of the issues. And people should be able to know, like he said, he should be able to have understood. You were a minister before under this individual. You should be able to have known that he's not somebody who will condone some oppositions. You also have to ask yourself, how formidable are you in your own constituency? Because you cannot win an election if you don't have power base. There are some of the issues. So to me, it wasn't a plus. It was just for Debris to cover the face of the world that there is democracy. That people are allowed, people are contesting with me. Yeah. You know, but the press of that environment will tell you that there are no contestants. The only person is the opposition, who was harassed every day of the election. The woman was not spoken to because he didn't see her as anything to affect his election.
You mean she just had to complete the number?
Yes, they just wanted to use some persons to show that at least he wasn't the only person contesting. The good news they would have done is for all of them to have withdrawn from the election, because yes, all the opposition should have withdrawn, because there was nothing that they would have done that would give a fair and a balanced way of electing. It wasn't there. So you make the public know these are issues. So even when you're saying you're not going to boycott, but let it be known, we are boycotting this election. We are not contesting, but we are saying individuals. You want to vote, you can go and vote. But we are saying that there is nothing like democracy and free and fair election in this instance. And so we didn't need to waste our time.
But some persons are still there supporting Idriss. They say he's the right man for the job.
No, my brother.
And they are not few in number, they are many in number, they are much.
Look, let us not, no matter how bad people are, they still have followers. Because these are persons who depends on them. Idriss has been in power for 30 years. Wasn't there just like that? He has power, he has people he greases their hands, so people are benefiting from him. And those people are ready because they have the power of the government to go and harass locals. Idriss will not go to a constituency to go and harass the people. It's people he will send. And these are people who are in that constituency. So some persons, just like we have seen even in Nigeria, you give a local man 20,000 to give to the people. He takes 15 and tell them, look, it's faster than half for all of you. As you go down, there is injustice there going on. You know, people are so the poverty and all, and made people, even if you give them one CD, they will take at least for that period. They say, I've gotten something. The other candidates don't have money to share. And people, these are some of the issues. People are not, Africans are not looking for ideology. They are not looking for substance. They are looking for money. They are looking for how they can feed themselves. That's why somebody can give you a bag of rice, and you throw the whole of your life for the person. And that's for 4 years. You have to ask yourself a question, or 5 years. Will that bag of rice serve me for 5 years? Why can't you see? Until there is an anger against injustice and ruin, so we are ready to pay the sacrifice, the dues. Like what happened in the Asian and the Americans, where citizens have to revolt. For days they were on the street. They were not going anywhere. As a prime minister, you are afraid you must leave. 2 weeks they were there. Those people have to resign because the people came to a point to say this is it. Until we got to that point, nothing changes.
All right, Honorable Frank, do you think that method will work? You come out and you just remain in the street until you resign. Nothing changes in the case of Chad with Idriss there at the hems of affairs. Don't forget that some persons tried to demonstrate and they were dealt with harshly.
Yes.
Is it going to work?
It will work on two grounds. First, in the dream.
In the dream?
Second, in a civilized country. Known in Africa. Some days ago, one of the mayors in Germany jumped the queue. There was a COVID vaccination queue. He jumped that queue and he was suspended. But in Nigeria, if that's a governor jumps the queue, he won't jump the queue. People on the queue will just give
way. Let him go.
Governor is too high. Local government chairman. That's one of the things.
That thing cannot happen in Africa. The more you protest, any moving object bring down. And they will shoot at sight and nothing happens. There's no, if you are saying go to the international criminal court, nothing will happen. But people would have lost their lives. So maybe the best bet would have been, this man is recontesting the 6th time, allow him. Once it's true, if death does not meet him in that place, God bless him. Otherwise, now you don't have the resources, manpower, all manners of things to contest against such a city president. If I were there, I would have contested at all. I would have saved the little resources I had. I'll just go online and be protesting on my own.
No, your own online. I said that this will just be a life president in charge.
Let him be. Online protest.
See, two things are happening. I would have expected them to focus on the National Assembly and the regional elections. If you're able to sever some of them from him, then you will be weakening his power.
How can they do it?
They can.
They won't allow.
No, you see.
But according to the report, he's being repressive right now.
Yes, because this is presidential election. This is him involved. But when you now go down to constituencies, like I said, he doesn't win the election in every constituency. As powerful as he is, there are constituencies he can't win the election. Okay? So those are things that he needs to do. If he can sever some regional governors from him.
Over time.
That's what they would have been doing. Instead of just waiting on the president. That's what African does. You are waiting to remove a man at the top. You're not talking of looking at the bottom, looking at the roots. You can. Because if you want to kill a tree, dig deep and cut the roots.
All right, Reverend. Thank you so much. Well, I'll see your parting comment. Yes. Will Idriss be a life president in Chad for what is happening right now?
If he wants to, he will be.
If he wants to. What about you, Reverend?
He has already indicated it from the beginning. But he's not God.
All right.
And that's what he doesn't know whether he will live to survive even after the election, whether he will live to survive the next day.
Okay, let's keep watching, because right now some are complaining while others are very happy with the outcome of the result. No matter what happens, they just say if it's going to be a landslide victory for Idriss. Don't forget also Niger Republic they are conducting the election. Yes, they are also doing, someone is winning 98% victory. We'll talk about that later. Africa by Africa. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on today's show. I appreciate your wonderful analysis. See you tomorrow, God willing, on International Forum. Bye for now.
This is ITV, certainly the best.